Um, okay. So couple of things just in terms of like small updates. We thank you for the f folks. I think there are three organizations that have filled out the feedback forms. We really appreciate that. But a couple things in there, um, one, there's a desire to hear more from each other. So we'll do a little bit of a sort of a small deep dive, but of just some like changes that we did for the IOM piece. And Shadi, if you could talk a little bit about your rollout and like what's good, what's bad, what's happening, I think that would be useful for everybody to hear. Um, and then, there was some feedback like, basically the eval pieces were a little too technical. And then, how do we give ultimately better dashboards, right? That can kind of be shown up the chain and are kind of more understandable to people that are not day in and day out of this. And so I would say thank you guys for that feedback and please keep it coming. We do take all of that extremely seriously. Um, the other thing, just in terms of updates, we have been doing a bunch to try to make things like search better. And I just wanted so you guys are kind of aware of it. Like you can now search for if I'm, pretending to be open up today. You can basically just go ahead and filter to just things in your workspace if you want to. And then this is like everything that you haven't saved. And then if you want to, search for, I don't know, grade six, right? All of these should now work in there. And so to basically make that type of searching easier, and then you'll see we've got a few more features that'll be associated with this too, that you can like sort based on things like runs and features. So anyways, that's coming, but this is out. And then the other thing that was sort of hot off the press, just released this morning, is we have implemented that denial of service attack blocking, which now kicks in there automatically. It's not configurable yet, but if somebody sends more than 50 messages in a day, after that, we just stop, right? And we basically send them back a message that says you reached the limit. And there will be another deployment where that number is kind of configurable, but know that that is now, um, which sucks. And so we basically just did to sort of, and then. Yeah, and then as I mentioned, so for next week, well, next week is our sort of last formalized group
Sean,
where we're all together.
You appear to be coming in and out. Can you double check your connection?
Sorry. Moving to a better Wi-Fi spot. Maybe this helps. Am I smoother now?
It just was the audio was cutting out entirely. Like you'd be talking, all of a sudden it would just stop. So we're seeing the screen share in the video, but the audio is what was cutting out.
Okay. Can
Sounds
you hear
good
me
now.
now?
Yep.
Okay, great. I'm closer to my Wi-Fi access point. Uh,
Nope, you just cut
uh,
out again. Sorry.
uh,
Maybe stop video.
maybe. Uh, can you guys hear me better now?
Yep.
Okay. Just for next week, basically we'd love it if each cohort in each of the teams can put together kind of a demo that they give to everyone else here. It's sort of the kind of, hey, this is what we came up with after 13 weeks. And to kind of show off any insights, and we'd love to hear from you. And so rather than us doing the talking, the demoing, to basically make that. And then again, keep an eye out for, there will be this invitation probably sometime mid next week for interviews from our kind of outside evaluator. And then just a reminder, right, that as part of you getting into the program, there's a bunch of kind of at cost usage of GUI up to the next $30,000. And so for those of you that kind of like want to go forward with these tools after the accelerator is done, we can begin to obviously have those conversations and get that set up. I would just ask that that get routed predominantly through Carver as the kind of maestro of all of that's happening. So Steve's going to drive on that side. Any questions for the next week stuff before we get into the last four parts?
Nope.
And so just in terms of other little bits, we figured, Shadi, why don't you, if we, I just thought it would be interesting to talk through a little bit of your desire around this sort of consent button and then like what we had to change to actually make it happen. I thought it was like an interesting and somewhat contained little case study of want to make a change. How do you do it?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Sean. So, to start from scratch, I thought we'll be reaching the 100 beneficiary within only 1 week. Actually, I went on a TDY and I figured out that's a little bit like theoretical because when we have been disseminating the consent form and the terms and conditions to the frontliners who are supposed to be nurses, doctors, or anyone working with the health department. We figured out that this is also a full disclosure. Maybe I didn't make a very good assessment about the time or exactly the week when trying to disseminate because they have been facing a huge workload and adding on them like an extra task to explain the chatbot and to explain the paper-based consent form and also the terms and condition. The feedback was that this is a little bit a time-consuming thing. I don't know because in the beginning we thought that it's important when we are piloting to have this detailed consent form with everything, maybe 4 pages and the code, IOM beneficiary code, and they have to sign in multiple languages. And also we have been attaching the terms and condition because we were a little bit afraid about this. I don't know, because we are dealing with maybe people who are seeking IOM for health services and who might have health condition, and this confidentiality and sensitivity of let's say health information, maybe we took a little bit I don't know how to say that, but it was a little bit pushy to the frontliners to stick to that thing. So the result was I didn't achieve the 100 beneficiary, even though they have been maybe providing services to more than 100%, like maybe way more than 100, like up to 300%. So and then we thought that let's make it a little bit easier for them and provide them some flex. So I asked John and Ambika, thank you again, guys. And the consent, or they said the most important things that are the terms of use and the condition, terms of use and condition to be already in the welcoming message. And someone who's interested to go through terms and condition can really read terms and condition before giving their consent or agree to proceed and continue using the chatbot. For those who are not interested, maybe they also trust IOM and they already filled the consent form of becoming an IOM beneficiary, they can proceed directly using the chatbot. The long story short, the fact that guys sometimes the theory changes something, but when we are trying to pilot and disseminate and have this in action, we might face resistance from frontliners because maybe they haven't been involved enough through the cohort. Maybe they think it's important thing, but it's not the right time to pilot this. They are overwhelmed. Let's say this. They are overwhelmed because of the heat during July and the cases of sub-Saharan migrants coming to IOM offices. It's a bit. I said it's a heavy workload. Power outage sometimes has no AC, so also they think, why are you providing me this to test? And there's a lot of they said corridors comments about why are you piloting this now? And fortunately, now we started last Monday, and we have 62 active users. The WhatsApp analytics, I think it's we are in a good spot, and kind of like I think that by the beginning of next week, I said Tuesday or Wednesday, we're gonna be able to achieve the 100 beneficiary testing. Also, specifically because now we decided that they don't have to provide them the paper-based consent and terms and condition. So they just we're gonna get rid of this. We just scan the QR code that is printed on the wall, and if they agree, they can use it
So
directly.
one question that I feel like is relevant definitely for the city of Seattle folks too, and I've often seen this with government services, which is oftentimes the availability of digital government services will be advertised at the government office, which is, from that perspective, it's like, well, I'm already here. Why do I want to interact with a digital thing if I can just talk to the person in front of me, right? And I feel like I have great empathy for what I can only imagine are the doctors where you've got sick patients that are coming in, right, and are under tremendous stress, and anything that's adding to that stress and not dealing with the emergency, literally, that's in front is just a nuisance, right? And so I wonder for both of you guys, for both of these cases, like the place that the availability of this is advertised. Like if you think about the journey of this migrant, right? They've come from home, they enter Tunisia, they get there, they have a health problem, they then have to basically navigate to that clinic. And then once they're at the clinic, they don't want to think about how to get to other clinics. They just want to solve the health problem. And so I wonder if there's a place earlier in the journey, right, before they're actually at the clinic, right, that may be more appropriate to essentially advertise these things. And I'm curious if you have thoughts on that.
Exactly that. We just started that today, Sean.
Yeah.
And the QR code now is available at the intake, because the health department are not at the first line, they are second line. The intake is just the people who come to IOM and ask about services and about volunteer return, about resettlement, about a lot of things. And we thought this service, or let's say AI chatbot, would be much more uh, useful and at the intake, and will be more interesting to not limit it's a health chatbot, but limiting the health chatbot just after the medical frontliner decide to refer the beneficiary, as gonna be limiting the service, because it's also can be helping someone who just need the information. I don't need
Yeah.
to see the doctor. I don't know. I don't need to, for example, to go through any medical assessment, but I just want to need the information about babies vaccination that my partner or whoever, like the my neighbor and within my community, was asking me about availability of vaccination services in Tunisia. So I don't need to go through any health services within IOM, but this information might be available in this AI chatbot. So we tried also to diversify and to provide the QR code for this WhatsApp within other colleagues who are considered within the protection department, the intake, and also they are called case workers. They are not health frontliners, but we kept explaining to them that mainly this is when someone is concerned about or is curious about health availability of navigating the availability of health services in Tunisia.
Okay. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, the only other thing that I would say, especially if you are positioning these things in a place that is not the health services, you inevitably are probably going to get a wider set of queries, right? And things and expectations. And so this is one where it may be worth just taking another look at our analysis script to see, great, do we think we're categorizing things correctly? If you're getting questions that are out of domain, do you have this sort of infrastructure in place that you can analyze that? And so for everybody to sort of look at it, each person can kind of go into this view analytics piece. Um, and then, this thing loads. Um, you basically just, will sort of call out, this in terms of the messages, and especially when you're at this small level of like dealing with folks that are coming in, um, this is super, yeah, this is the raw set of conversations, right, that people are having. And it's important to review this and say, are we categorizing it correctly? Are we putting it in? Are we meeting expectations? Um, and some of these are quite serious, right? And, but this, I would certainly encourage you to download this, right? And then look at this shoddy and then say, hey, what do people seem to really be asking about? Are we capturing kind of their needs? And what do we think the assistant responses are looking like too? So, um, but anyways, this is where it gets interesting, right? Like
Mhm.
before this point, it was all theoretical, right? And then, I would say for everyone, just for, if you've ever shipped anything, this process is inevitably humbling, right? Because like all the assumptions that we made are probably wrong. And that's totally normal. Um, the one little thing that I guess I just wanted to show was if you look at the change that we needed to make, right, to basically enable this I agree thing, it was relatively simple. It was really just adding in this set of lines. And so, we basically said in the conversation flow to append this thing, that when they say hi, that before we start, to provide you with accurate and personalized services, I may store your WhatsApp number, and then we're just putting in the links to the terms here. And then, the only magic, right, that basically makes this like I agree button that you see here, which is like a WhatsApp affordance that allows them to sort of state these things easily, is we have this syntax for buttons, right? And so we added in the line, please respond with I agree to give permission. And then we added in this button. And then we added in this additional part in the conversation flow that just says, until the user agrees, they respond with a phrase like I agree or any of these other ones. Remind them that they need to agree to data collection before using their service. And that's really it. That's the only change that was kind of made here. Um, but I figured it's kind of, this is, yeah, this is how like such a desire gets translated into LLM prompt.
That's really, really cool. Is there a way that, Sean, that you could think of how we could, well, pause for a verbal I agree and use kind of that same functionality from, where we're strictly um, only doing an
Yeah.
audio call? Is there a pause or some way that we could have a listener for that?
I don't think you need to have the listener. I would literally probably just add this thing. Like literally, I would take the same prompt that we have here, removing the terms and conditions if you need to, and then just try it, right?
We'll do that
Rather
in our
than,
test one right now. Thanks.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
and then just give that a go, and then see how well does that work, right? Rather than programming a pause or anything like that, just give the bot guidance of like, what do you need to do? Um, in your particular case, or in this particular case, Rob, you probably don't need this button. This button is really there exclusively so that we have this kind of better
Yeah,
afforded kind of WhatsApp. In the
understood.
audio piece, you can literally just say they have to agree, right? And then, yeah. And so there's going to be a little bit of like prompt engineering around it, but this is really the bulk of it, right?
Can I ask what happens if they do not agree? Does it not proceed? Is it intuitive enough to know not to move forward?
Well, so we could, I mean, it'll speculate on what it thinks the right thing to do is. And then if you want to be more prescriptive about that, we would just add another line, which is if they
Okay,
don't agree, say the following, right? Or whatever
got
that
it.
is.
Okay.
So it'll kind of make stuff up, right? And so if you can kind of test it here, right? So it's searching the database, right? And then give this thing a second. And then it's saying you have to agree to the terms and conditions. Uh, and it's like, where's the clinic? If I, ignore this, for example. Um, and then it should come back and, yeah. And so you can see it's just sort of getting into this loop of like, you have to say, I agree.
Okay.
So, and then we can, like I'll share the deck if any of you guys want to kind of play with this, you can. But hopefully that's helpful, right? Just in terms of like, this is how a relatively simple change we go ahead and do, and then, how this plays out. The one thing that I will have to share after the fact is this thing does change your test scripts, right? Because then in your test scripts, you have to insert this I agree before you then do the other tests. So I don't have that one in front of me, but we'll share basically how the bulk evaluations and the valuations need to basically change a little bit. You sort of have to send over two messages when you're doing your bulk evaluations now rather than one if you're forcing everybody to hit I agree. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
Is there a way that the whole welcome message in WhatsApp is just in one answer? So these are not different, when you have like you send something and you stop and send another thing. So it's not fragmented. Is the whole thing is just
Yeah,
in
so
one
if
block?
you just turn off streaming, it will send it in messages. It will make the responses a little slower because then
Mhm.
it'll wait, right, for everything to come through before it sends it. So there's a bit of a trade-off there.
Okay, okay, got it. Yeah, awesome. So just because it's a feedback from again a feedback from those who work with me, and I've been sharing it with people working at the World Health Organization, other organizations who are also providing health services.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, maybe this is a technical feedback.
Yeah.
The audience is different. The fact that they feel like the chatbot is providing a little bit a lot of informations, and
Right.
also it's the visual. They think maybe a lot of information is because as you said, it's fragmented. It's not just in one block. It just keeps sending blah 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 many information, and I feel like this is maybe biased. I don't know. I'm processing this if it's because this feedback is from people who are not needy. They're not asking really questions about their health condition. They're just testing, or maybe because um, yeah, they're asking from a position of someone who's providing the service, who's not receiving the service, because we thought that maybe a migrant or someone from host community who really interested into getting more and more information will be happy getting a bulk of information, a lot of answers, and a lot of options. The other person might think, no, this is a lot. This is an extra thing. This is too much. Or why all the information are not just in one block? Why this is annoying me sending I don't know 10 messages. So yeah, just I wanted to share this with you guys.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that those are all conceivably real. This is why, getting close to actual users and watching them, right? You will give you those insights. And then in the end, you have to trust your judgment and then you try it. And then ultimately, once you're at a little degree of more usage, you should be able to see effects of your changes in terms of whether people get through the funnel or don't, right? And so in the end, your goal is to try to, get them to describe a problem, describe the location, and give them ultimately a set of locations back. And so that's the funnel. And so then I would, optimize for design changes that help you get to that funnel, right? The last portion of it. But yeah, this will always happen in, software design. You're going to get conflicting feedback sometimes, and you have to make a call. That's what product owners do. Okay. I wanted to just to sort of working along. Any other questions before we move on just from this particular example? I did want to, well, just so you guys know, here's today's deck and the links to that are in there. Okay. Um, as we're, kind of moving right along we've been trying to keep everybody's, all of the feedback and the requests that you've been giving us. So as I mentioned, like this is our sort of current stack rank of like how we're working through all of the stuff that you guys have asked for and kind of what the actual ordering is on our side. As I mentioned, we just shipped this block in the DSNS number prevention. We've got another developer that's working on this end call piece. I'll give you a little demo today of what this bot builder is, which is kind of, it's a little bit of a kind of peek to the future. But I just wanted to say this is our process in which we're capturing these things. The usage metrics for, Twilio pieces, this is so that we can actually accurately, measure like how much time and, pieces we're using. The one thing that hopefully middle or end of next week that you guys should have that I think will be really useful for lots of you is number cycling. And so this basically will allow you to deploy new bots on telephone numbers for WhatsApp, voice, and SMS without actually having to provision new numbers by using essentially extensions. And so this will hopefully increases the speed at which you can try out new things and try out kind of small experiments there. Um, and then the other kind of thing that did come up is, I think this may be 2 weeks out, but I know that several of you asked for this idea of memory that you want to store, like, hey, they hit consent, or you want to store a user's location, or you want to store some information about the user that they've told you. And so this is the idea of memory. And so that one, with our work with opportunity, there's now like enough clients that essentially have asked for this that will do it. And then, we're still tracking the ability to scramble PII data in the dashboards, the ability to auto delete conversations, and this G Drive integration and the time to live. And so just know that, we're keeping track of everything that everybody's asked for. And then this represents the current stack rank that we have. And if somebody cries bloody murder, these things can be kind of rearranged. And I think we already did, Gokul, some of your requests too on just like the variables and making sure that all of those were working well. But so any other, pieces in here where people feel underrepresented or things that are super important really for your rollout, right? That really, I just want to make sure that we're capturing that and are unblocking everybody so that you can do a successful rollout.
I will throw out that yesterday I was catching knowledge sources from other clients in my RAG queries,
Okay.
which was making some things a little bit less reliable in terms of responses.
Okay. When you say from other clients, what do you mean?
Knowledge documents that did not belong to our organization.
Yeah, that's super weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you send that one over?
I mentioned them to Dave in the private channel yesterday.
Yeah, that's the first I've heard that bug, but that's obviously a serious bug. So that one's weird.
Yeah, the response I got at the time was that this was not private information, so there wasn't anything super protected that was being leaked, which is reassuring. But the fact that I was picking up other knowledge documents does suggest that there's A, potentially a problem, and B, that the responses from our agent aren't informed solely by our knowledge documents, which would also.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you probably did it. If you could just share those runs, that would be helpful.
Yes, they're in the Discord channel.
Yeah.
I'm away from my keyboard at this exact moment, but I can.
It's certainly possible that there's some database bug in there that's like somehow leading to some leakage. I'm not sure.
We've been doing a bunch of testing and on our test Seymour voice, Sean, and I've been seeing some very odd knowledge coming in that's not part of that's, we're doing the same explicit must use knowledge base and things are pulling in from other areas and getting some very interesting responses. And it just has been the last week because it's been very solid. So I was curious if there was something, if anybody else was noticing that. But I'll share ours as well for those.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some regression that occurred there, but if you could share both of those, Rob, that'd be good. And Peter.
Yeah.
Other things like that, should be brought to our attention of weird stuff that should be happening.
This morning, the voice message, the answer, there has been always an issue saying the numbers in French language. It was okay the week before. This morning it was messy. I don't know why. The IOM numbers, yes.
Yeah, so I would just say all of these, you guys have that WhatsApp group or email, just send those over as they come up, right? It's okay to be, noisier than you think you just should be. The numbers in French thing, we've definitely seen that there's different guidance that you can give to the LLM that will cause it to basically speak that better, right? And so for fractions or for other things, there's definitely some techniques there, but you sort of have to look at that particular case, but there's definitely things you can do there. Like we do
Sure.
stuff where we will strip out or transform the text a little bit right before we pass it to the TTS encoder, for example. So there's some techniques that are certainly possible to make that voice output better.
Awesome. Thanks.
But again, share the routes. Any other bugs, feedback that people have run into? I think that's it then. Okay. So anyways, I wanted to give you that part. And then one thing just to see like what's coming before we get into the Q&A portion, which is kind of exciting. And maybe we'll just do it here. So we had this, analysis script, right? And so we want to say things like, where did you mention, Shadi, that the bot, or rather the QR code was going to be listed? At the
The QR,
center.
yeah,
Yeah.
at the clinics, like where the migrant will go through health assessment, or the migrant will be meeting with a nurse or a doctor, and also at the intake box when it's called intake because it's that those who were not IOM beneficiaries just walk in, they go there to ask about what are the available the service availability and how can IOM help them.
Okay. So maybe, and then one of the things that might be, so what I'm just trying to show you here is kind of like what's coming, and this is a little bit early, but this is essentially an excuse the UX, and we'll make this better. But essentially, you can, rather than trying to, like edit your prompts directly, this is a tool that allows you to describe the changes that you'd like to see, and then it'll kind of just do it for you. And so, if you wanted to say add an additional category to capture the intake center, right? And then what are the three nearest intake centers where this will be, kind of where the QR code will be displayed?
Yeah, exactly. It actually is like two offices for the intake within the same building. After going through the intake, they are, let's say, referred either to child protection, to health, to legal services, etc.
I meant like a physical location. Which
A
of those?
physical location, yeah, it's just it can say intake 1 or intake 2. There are
Okay.
two
So
two main boxes here.
one, and then intake two. So basically, I'm just sort of describing, hey, add an additional category to capture the New York Intake Center, right?
Mhm.
And then what this will do is this essentially, this is effectively vibe coding changes that we'll see here, right? And so, if you now look in here, this is like run that. Um, it should have, basically, uh, okay, test was another one. So we should be able to see, oh, if I totally that's in here. Of course, the demo doesn't like me today. Has been outed like test and intake one. This is what, always the difficulty with live code examples. But what we're trying to do is that, so see that basically, okay, so then it said, where's the nearest intake center? But it didn't actually do this. Okay, sorry, my demo is falling on deaf ears. Usually this thing would go ahead and change what we see here, and basically go ahead and try to update these things for you automatically. But we're clearly not quite there, and I'll hope to give you another one next week. But we're trying to get to the point where essentially, that rather than coming talking to us, we're trying to endow all of our knowledge into these tools such that these things will, as well as other vibe coding tools do today, update your scripts and have a sense of your functions and try to, take natural language feedback and make these things better. So I just wanted to give you a direction of what we're going there, and we're still trying to, anyways, that one's still obviously in beta. Um, I think that's it. So I think at this point we're just trying to, if there's other questions, we're happy to answer them. Other places that people are blocked, we're happy to do that too. I know Gokul and kind of on the city of Seattle side, there's been a bunch of back and forth. Angela, if you wanted to do another follow-up meeting to see, kind of what are the critical blockers, um, I have availability tomorrow afternoon if you wanted to do a follow-up on that one. Um, and then Peter, if you wanted to do a session with, me and or Dave, in particular, we would love to debug. I would really love to debug, right, what's happening with this knowledge-based thing. And I feel like that needs some relatively urgent attention. So if you share the runs, we'll start looking at that now. But
They're already in the Zoom chat here and in the Discord chat.
thank you. Anybody else?
Can I say something? And sorry for my ignorance.
Mhm.
Also, this is coming from a feedback from a colleague working with WHO.
Mhm.
If AI is super intelligent and if I'm asking AI, where is the closest pharmacy to me,
Uh-huh.
which is right? But in Tunisia and many other countries, and there are pharmacies that are they are pharmacies that are working during the days, and there are pharmacies working at night, the night shift pharmacies, and these timings are already written in their Google Maps. These working hours and reviews, and if AI can already check into the Google Map link if this is working now or not, which is a bit confusing. I know it's better to have like a repository or something online which is giving the working hours of pharmacies across the region or the neighborhood, and then maybe I can go through that and provide you the address and check the GPS point maybe. But in this case, we still don't have this. With the only information about working hours is within the Google Maps. And if AI can do that, and we even thought about this can be another chatbot, by the way, about the availability of medication and pharmacies, but just discussing the idea how AI can go. Can AI go far at this point or not?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'll try to give you guys a framework to try to think about the question, right? So one, ideally, you at search time, right? So, we basically made something that was very simple that said, hey, here's the lat long of where the user is. And then you had, your Excel sheet of 2,000 locations and the lat long associated with all these health facilities. And there were some columns, if I recall, in there for working hours as well. And so one of the things that we could certainly do is if you have that data in the big Excel sheet, right, where you've maintained that, then updating it to basically do a search that includes a filter for like the current time, that's relatively straightforward. It's not really an AI thing. It would just be, we're just changing that small algorithm that we have that does the search. If you
Yeah.
don't have that information, right?
Mhm.
And it gets a little harder because the problem is you sort of have a loose coupling that we don't actually have the exact Google search piece. So this is where you get kind of agentic, where you'd give back a set of results and then you'd tell the bot, please go check the Google search listing for each one of these. And sort of sequentially, as it's kind of going back and forth and checking them, and then tell me if that's open right now, and then come and do it. And so that's kind of possible, certainly. Like each of your bots has the ability to search the internet and has the ability to like read from a web page.
Mhm.
Um, and so, but it would like I can kind of imagine how you do it, but it's a little bit of
Mhm.
back and forth to make that happen.
Uh, just adding that in many countries in Africa, this timing they change
Yeah,
because if, for example, it's called a day pharmacy, for example, next weekend is my shift, but the weekend after is not. It's going to be another pharmacy. So it's a very dynamic data. And that's the tricky thing. That is even within the Google, it's going to change. It's not going to be
yeah.
just you capture it one time and it will be available maybe next week. That's the tricky thing. I wanted to get back, like to share this feedback with you guys, all of you.
I mean, the way to think about it is you could probably make a bot that could do anything a person could do at this point and do it pretty fast. The problem is it's not clear that a person could search for this data digitally. That's it. And then it's then going to be difficult. Go.
Yeah, it's pasted the one link there. It's just like I was just typing it out just now, a couple minutes before. Um, I wonder if you're able to see the results there. It's really the sky's the limit. I can pretty much do quite a lot um, to manipulate the system in many ways. Think of,
Separate issue. Let's get to that one in a second. I just want to finish off Shuddies.
oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Um, but Shoddy, yeah. So this is one where the data needs to exist somewhere on the internet and be kind of accessible digitally, and then I can imagine kind of different techniques to basically try to get that thing and to be smart about it. And so, yeah. So, anyways, if it's something that's important that you want to dig into a little deeper, we can obviously do that.
Sure, still not a priority.
Yeah.
Just brainstorming, and
Yes.
the more we dig in, the more we're gonna get feedbacks. And actually, it can be like a future thing. It's very, very important because a lot of people, even local communities, they struggle and they need to go around with their cars to trying to check especially at night, the pharmacy that is open.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I can imagine if you do list those hours, changing the search algorithm such that it takes into account the time at which somebody's searching. It seems like a reasonable and pretty straightforward thing. Um, I would, at this point, given you're so close to actually doing real deployments, I would encourage you probably to try to push as hard as you can to see what do people really need, right? And then use that as a prioritization filter rather than just what do we think is interesting, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so to try to get closer to that. Okay. So yes, Gokul, thank you for doing the prompt stuffing example. We can dive into that one in greater depth. I think it would probably be better to do that one with Dave. So let's, if you don't mind, if we could push that one till after this, I would love to do it with him over it. But thank you for finding the prompt stuffing example.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
Rob, you had a scent issue. The one.
Oh, I was just saying, that you're showing us how to do the details and message. It doesn't sort by the sent date time. It kind of block chunks it into month, but it doesn't actually go from oldest to newest if you click on that sent button. For some reason, it's just not pulling in the dates to actually sort them in order of newest to
Yeah.
oldest.
On this one, I might recommend that you just do the little export issue there and then bring it into, your favorite Excel or anything else.
Yep.
Just like,
No, that's what we've been doing. I just wanted to let you
yeah.
know that it doesn't work currently.
Yeah, we don't fully have all of the like Excel-based tools that you'd really like to see in there, right?
Yeah.
So I've found it's just easier to do the export of the data and then look at it and slice and dice it in a tool that's built end to end for that. But thank you. But yes, this sort of thing should work. And then you had one, Rob, where you said example where it gets stuck. What does that mean?
Oh, that is where it's pulling. So if you look at it, it's asking questions and you can see it just kind of responding to the previous. And
Yep.
then this one, sorry, I was just pasting in the example where it's pulling outside information. Um, but it's
Okay, this is the one where you say you've got information in there that shouldn't.
yeah, we don't have the actual like floor and information anywhere, but it's sourcing that data from somewhere, which is great. It's pointing out where that's at, but because it's not in any of our knowledge bases, it triggers like, hey, where is it actually figuring that our inspections is on the fourth floor of that building? So it's when we see kind of that the data that since it's such a small knowledge base, it's like, hey, how exactly do you know where that's at? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, for this one, we'll probably look into. Remember, the bots do hallucinate
yep.
sometimes, right? And so there's this question. My biggest concern is that we shouldn't be pulling chunks from somebody else's database.
Yeah, I don't ever see
Hallucination.
data from other databases. That's strictly ours was just that, hey, we're very specific of don't pull outside of our knowledge base, and we're seeing, where it
That's what
continues
still
to
does that.
hallucinate a little bit. Even in this case, it was correct, but that whole um actually in this case they're not on the fourth floor, but
Okay, so it's confidently saying something like it is on the fourth floor, but where the hell did it get that information that it was on the fourth floor?
correct.
And so for that, again, the debug process usually is there's these long series. So this is where it's pulling that out. And so there's probably somewhere in here, if you search, there's something. Yes, so this is where it got it. So, oh, this is
For
one of the
utility
places.
payments. Okay, so it just is associating that with a different office address.
Yeah, this is where it's pulling it up because it says it's on, I'm not sure which one, but like this is the chunk where it's pulling that data, right?
Got it. I think it's just extrapolating. Okay. Because I did look through there and I'm like, okay, I even looked at the knowledge base and didn't see that. And that's not correlating to this particular office, the DCI. But I see that there is data that has that address in there, and that could be where things are going awry. So I will try the technique you were mentioning yesterday of being explicit about where the actual location is and see if it updates the answer.
Yeah, but that's usually, as I said, usually it's making up data that is in these search results that it's gotten back.
Got
And
it.
so, it's like you can see the technique that I used there, which is not that, but I did the find, right, to basically find this. So I think this is where it's getting from. And is that telephone number match, that 684-7800? Is that the telephone?
No, it's 8,600, so it's a whole different number.
Oh,
It's kind of combining information from that knowledge base, which
yeah, that's a little weird of like, why did it pick up that fourth floor? Yeah, so anyways, I would try to, and we can work to render these like new lines thing, which makes this really hard to read, and maybe we should do that. Um, to basically make sure that just that this thing gets a little more legible. But usually the answers that are coming, that's happening here, it's because these search results are being combined, because you'll see at the end of this, the very end of all of your relevant data that it thinks it pulled back, and it's certainly pulling out a lot. It's basically so this was the tool call that it did, but it's ultimately trying to use that data based on what you have specified up here in terms of how to use that tool. So you say in here that this is basically how it's going to then interpret the results that it gets back. And so if you wanted to say things like don't say the floor number, you could. I feel like that might not be the right thing to do. But
No, I agree. Yeah, I just I took the excerpt of where it's pulling that. And so there's a customer service center, but it has nothing to do with this particular office. And so I think I'll just I'll try with some more specific language in our instructions to specify that the customer service centers are not department offices or something of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, and just so you guys know, like when you have a run like this, you can just adjust the system prompt or whatever prompts you want directly here and then hit run. And this exact state of where the conversation was will be rerun, right? And
Got it.
so
Okay.
I basically say something like, never mention floor numbers, right? Well, not that you would do this, but you'll see it'll then reinterpret everything with that. And so, sort of have a weird one of, well, what persona are you using? But I don't know why.
Well, and that was that's the interesting that I was kind of showing is that we're getting that occasionally as well, where we'll ask a question, it'll just continue to give you the response from previous. But that doesn't seem to be happening on the actual voice calls. It's just happening through the UI here.
Huh.
Where it kind of gets caught and we just have to hit start a new chat where it just kind of hangs and provides the same answer over and over again.
That is weird. Yeah. Anyways, we'd have to go a little deeper on it if we wanted to.
No, it's understood.
Any other quick questions in the last 4 minutes or burning things before we hop off? So Peter, we've got to follow up on you on that one. And we'll look at that now. Tom, anything from your land over there on the PM side?
No, we're good right now. Just working with Peter to test some things.
And then the one thing, Bala, that Ambika did mention is now that you're beginning to do some rollouts, and I think you're, sending this thing out to like a few thousand people. We just wanted to make sure that your analysis script was in a good spot, so you're capturing the data that's coming in from those folks.
Yes, Sean. I think we were not sure what to capture in the analysis because we're also trying to see what the educators are asking the bot. So we have set up some basic parameters, but I think Ambika set up the script to find out if any other numbers are texting. Yeah, I think that's done.
I mean, just the basic ones of, the broad categories that you imagine, and then also does the bot answer the questions, and is it failing?
Yeah, that we've set up, but we've not gone very deep because this is also a chance for us to understand what educators need support with. So that's also another objective of the pilot. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys as always. We've updated the Rock Doc so that it has the recordings of all of the previous sessions and all of the decks. It takes about an hour and a half for Zoom to actually give us the recording link, so sometimes there's a little delay on that. And then thank you for Peter, we'll look into these kind of like weird knowledge-based things. And so for next week, love to see everybody's demos. This is the last chance to show off. I think it'll be great to see.
Awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.